So, am I crazy? Or do you deal with this too? I have 4 little words that can stop me in my tracks. And those 4 words are, what will people think? I mean, it's crazy. Those 4 words, I can just hear it in my head. And it's like it shuts me down, keeps me from doing what I was going to do because I'm just in so fear that, oh my gosh, what if they don't like me? Or what if I disappoint somebody? Or what if I let them down? Or what if they judge me? Or what if they say something mean? 4 words. One night I decided that I wasn't going to listen to those 4 words and I was just going to take a chance and see what happened and do it anyway. So one night, I had just flown in from the San Francisco airport into Orlando to help take care of my mother, who was just recovering and released from the hospital after open heart surgery. And I had stopped at the pharmacy to pick up her prescription and some wound care things that she needed. I got to the pharmacy and I went to the back and it had the please wait here for privacy, don't cross this line, and I stood there and there was a woman standing at the counter that the pharmacist was taking care of. And I was just kind of feeling good about myself. I had just got off the plane and I'm old school. I don't get to fly that often, so I think you should dress for the occasion. So I did. I looked great. I felt like $1,000,000. I had on my June Cleaver meets Mad Men dress with my rocked out mom hawk, and I had my chunky rock star jewelry on, and I felt great. Right above my head, I notice that there's a TV screen, and I can see the whole store behind me. And I can see these 2 women walking up. Well, where the screen is positioned, they can't see the screen, but I can. And as they walk up, I turned and I smiled at them and greeted them and said hi, and then I turned around. And then I started looking down at my phone and I looked up at the screen. I just happened to glance at the screen and they were making fun of me. These 2 women that were like my age, in their 40s, maybe a little older. And they were rolling their eyes and pointing at my hair and looking me up and down, and I just was deflated. It was like somebody had let all the air out of me. I was feeling so good a moment ago, and then all of a sudden I was just crashing down because I just thought I had turned around and smiled and said, "Hey, how are you?" It hurt my feelings. And I stood there and I watched them on the camera as they exchanged looks, pointing at me and judging me and making fun of me. So as I was standing there feeling sorry for myself and really awkward because I just wanted to leave, I wanted to say, turn around and say, "Why are you so mean?" I just, all these things went through my head of how I just wanted to, all the things I'd like to say to them. And the bottom line is I was just hurt. Anyway, God talks to me. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm standing in line and all of a sudden God says to me, "Listen to the lady at the counter." And I'm just kind of like, oh, seriously, God? Really? These 2 women behind me, they're making fun of me. Did you not just hear what they did or see what they did? And I'm feeling sorry for myself. And he's asking me to pay attention to this other lady. And he says again, pay attention to the woman at the counter. So I had to lay aside that voice that was speaking in my head, telling me all the nasty things they probably thought of me and why, and just my whole imagination was running wild, and self-pity and hurt and woundedness. That I started listening, and I hear the pharmacist say to the woman, "He needs these. He has to have these tonight. And I'm so sorry, your card just got declined. And I'll give you enough for this evening, but you have to come back with the money tomorrow." And God said, "You're up. Go pay for it." And so I'm embarrassed because these women are making fun of me, and I really don't want to step out and do anything. I'm not in the mood. I've just got my feelings hurt. And anyway, so I try not to make a big deal about it because he asks me to do these things all the time, and my job is just to get in, do it, and get out. It's so uncomfortable for me sometimes, a lot of times, most of the time. I just feel so awkward. Anyway, I went over to the lady was standing at the counter where you pick up the prescription, and the pharmacist had walked back over to the cash register, and I walked over to him and said, here, I handed him my debit card and said, here, this is for that woman's prescription, just let me pay for it. And he's like, oh no, don't worry about it, she has enough for tonight, and she's going to come back tomorrow, you don't have to do that. And I said, no, I insist, I'm supposed to do this. I'm here for a reason. I try to walk around it and say anything but God told me, because that's the last thing I want to say to people is, yeah, I talk to God. Which blows my mind, because like the psychic network, which I have nothing against, the psychic network is like this billion dollar industry, and as soon as you can say a psychic told me, and no one thinks anything of it, and then you say, but I say God said or God told me, they automatically think you're crazy. So anyway, I tiptoe around it. Anyway, long story short, I went back and forth with the pharmacist, and he finally took my card and he paid for it. And so he went over, and I heard him say to the lady that it was taken care of. And then he whispered, and they were talking, and I couldn't hear. And then all of a sudden, a few moments later, this woman, just like a linebacker, just comes out of nowhere and just attacks me and hugs me and is crying and devastated. I'm just sobbing on me, crying, and starts saying, why would you do this? Why would you do this? Why? Just tell me why you would do this. And I just finally said, God, why did I do this? Tell me what to say to her. What do I say to this woman? Holding me and crying. And he says, tell her I am her provider. And I said, he says, God wants me to tell you he's your provider. And she said, what? And then all of a sudden she starts crying even more. And I was just like, what now, God? And he's like, tell her again, I am her provider. And so I said to the lady, I got her, and I looked her in the eyes, and I said, I want you to know, God wants me to say again, you need to hear this. He wants you to know he is your provider. And the woman just lost it. And then she started going into the story of how her husband had gotten hurt and had lost his leg. He ended up having his leg amputated, and he worked in the labor force, and he was supporting their family, not only their family, but he was supporting a family back in his country where they had come from, and that so many people depended on him, and that he just all day had just been crying and crying and saying to his wife, how will I provide, how will I provide, how will I provide? And she said, and for you to say to me right here, to pay for this prescription, the medicine that he has to have, and then you say to me that God said that he's your provider. The lady was just crying, and it was like absolutely the one thing that could have been said. I mean, it just spoke to her. I mean, and she couldn't wait to get home to her husband to tell him about what had happened at the Walgreens, that this crazy white girl with a mohawk had a message from God. It was awesome. Now it was my turn. The lady walked away after thanking me and hugging and crying and loving all over me. And the two women that were standing behind me earlier got to see the whole thing. And you could see everything changed on them. They were now smiling and just shaking their heads like that was just the neatest thing that they had ever seen. Well, it was my turn now. And I went up to the pharmacist and I introduced myself and told him who I was and that I was there to pick up a prescription for my mom. And he just happened to know my mother and went into how much he liked her and what a great person she was, and just said, of course you're Linda Eibold's daughter. which I think would make her proud. I told him what had happened, that she had had open heart surgery and that she needed some things for wound care, and that if he would just point me in the right direction, I could find all the items and that I'd be right back with them. Well, he wouldn't have that. And I told him that if he just pointed me in the right direction, I could do this on my own, because I didn't want to have these ladies wait. And he evidently saw the way the ladies were with me, because he said to me out loud long enough and looked at them scoldingly and said, "Those ladies can wait." And came around the corner and took me through the store and got me each and every item, not without pointing out all the different items that we had that were the same and which ones he thought was better and for what reason. This man took his time with me, and he walked me through the store, and when I got done, I had everything that I needed. With all the things on the counter, he gave me the prescription, and I handed him my debit card, and he would not take it. He would not take my money. Instead, he pulled out his card, and he swiped it, and he said, "Please allow me to do this for you and for your mom, because I've never seen anything like that." That was the kindest thing I've ever seen anyone do. And I just thought it could have been the end, just what happened with the lady, and how that's going to impact her, and what she gets to go home and tell her husband, and then the pharmacist being touched by it, and obviously the women standing behind me, because when I came back, even after being gone for like 5 minutes, this was probably the longest time they've ever waited in line at a Walgreens. They all had smiles, and they were nice. I just thought it was awesome, because so many lives were impacted. So many of us were touched in that situation, and I think more me than anyone, because I got to be the one who was just kind of the messenger. And you know what? God does ask me a lot of times to say things to people or to do things for people, and I don't always say yes. And the reason why I don't always say yes is because of 4 little words. What will people think? And I'm so proud to say that day, even with it being to an extreme, because nobody usually that I know of stands and makes fun of me. But even on top of that, I pulled a 180, and I did what I was asked to do, and it paid off like crazy. And I just thought that was the best $45 I ever spent. My prescriptions and everything came out to $46, and the pharmacist ended up paying for it. I just think we have so many opportunities to do amazing things, and I just see also where things we get things stolen from us, opportunities. And if I hadn't done it, what it would have stolen from me wasn't anything compared to what it would have stolen from that woman. And maybe even for those 2 women standing there, because hopefully it taught them not to be mean girls at 40-something years old, and not to judge a book by their mom